7 spine-chilling Home Alone horror stories. The sinister secrets behind locked doors revealed. The sun dipped low behind the horizon, casting sharp shadows that clawed across their quiet street. Mia, just 16, shoved her fear deep down, but the feeling nagged, like a persistent itch she couldn't scratch. The darkness slipped around their suburban home, wrapping it in an uneasy quiet. Leaving her playful brother Jake to watch cartoons, Mia could also hear the creaks and pops echoing. The house was whispering secrets she just couldn't bear to understand. But tonight, everything changed. Were those thumps coming from the basement? She froze, recalling horror stories she'd heard from friends about what lurked behind closed doors. Every tick of the clock sent a shiver down her spine. No, it couldn't be the basement. She shook her head, centering herself. "It's just the house settling," she muttered, sinking deeper into the couch. But then, as if mocking her, she spotted flickering lights from the abandoned home next door. Goosebumps prickled her skin. What if it wasn't abandoned? What if someone was watching them? Then it all started. The notes. They appeared on their doorstep like sinister gifts meant to taunt her. Scrawled in uneven handwriting, the notes detailed their daily routines. Mia sits on the couch at 7. Jake laughs during commercial breaks. Each note felt like an intrusion, a reminder that someone was crawling through the shadows of their lives, hidden behind locked doors. Who could it be? Before she could quell the rising panic, a jolt of electricity coursed through the house as the power went out. Dark enveloped them like a thick fog. Mia screamed as the lights blinked out, her phone pinging with the dreadful message, "No signal." A ball of dread lodged in her throat. The urgency of the moment clawed at her mind as she felt the suffocation of isolation. "Jake!" she called, her voice trembling. She could hear him whimpering in the dark. The once comforting embrace of their home now crushed her with its silence. A familiar laugh turned into a whimper of fear, and Mia's heart raced. She scanned the room, every corner now occupied by mysteries left unsolved. Were the neighbors really what they seemed? She thought of the tales, whispers about families vanishing without a trace. Mia's gut clenched as the memory of sinister faces loomed larger than life in her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As darkness tightened its grip, Jake's soft breathing turned into quick, shaky gasps. In the depths of her anxiety, the door creaked open, drawing Mia's wide eyes to the basement. The whispers she had barely understood grew louder, spinning a web of dread throughout the house. The clock ticked ominously, marking every heartbeat that now felt louder and faster. Shadows danced on the walls, spinning stories of terror under the moonlit night. Just then, another note slipped under the door, catching her breath in her throat. This one promised safety, but at an unsettling price. Mia felt the walls close in around her. "Mia?" Jake's small voice broke through the deafening silence. Her heart screamed that something was terribly wrong. As the warm comfort of her home transformed into a diabolical cage, one question remained. Who was on the other side of that door? The echoing footsteps grew painstakingly closer. The footsteps echoed like a heartbeat, growing louder, closing in on her. Each step resonated in Mia's chest, a rhythm of terror she couldn't escape. She gripped the blanket tightly, its fibers digging into her palms, anchoring her to a false sense of security. The basement door creaked ever so slightly, a whisper of movement that sent a jolt through her spine. "Jake?" Her voice barely reached above a whisper. Fear twisted in her stomach as she turned her gaze back to her brother. His wide eyes glimmered in the darkness, reflecting sheer panic. She could barely see his small figure, quaking at the edge of the couch, trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Mia, what's happening?" he whimpered, a quiver in his tone. "I don't know," she said, her voice tiny and frail. "We just need to stay quiet." But her words barely drowned out the insistent scratching noise now coming from the basement. It was more than just thumps. It sounded like nails clawing the wooden steps, desperately trying to break free. The sound wormed its way into her mind, each scratch sending icy tendrils of dread coursing through her. Just then, another note slipped through the crack at the bottom of the door. It fluttered, dancing on the floor for an instant before settling like a dark omen. With heart pounding, she reached down to grab it, her fingertips brushing against the paper as though it were a live wire. But she hesitated. The warning it carried loomed in her mind. The last note had promised safety. "Don't read it!" Jake shrieked, but his words came too late. Mia unfolded the note with shaky hands. "Your time is running out. The door must be opened." Her breath hitched. It wasn't just a warning. It felt like a command, an urgent plea laced with malice. "Mia, did it say anything?" Jake peered at her, his face pale. "It's nothing," she lied, shoving the note into her pocket. Every instinct screamed at her to tear it up, but something held her back, a morbid curiosity that she couldn't shake off. The scratching intensified, and suddenly the door began to shake. A resonance filled the air. A voice, deep and distorted, crawled through the cracks. "Mia, open the door." A cold shiver ran through her, and she felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. It was as if the house itself breathed with a torment all its own, drawing out memories of her childhood. Countless happy moments now tinged with ominous shadows. "Mia, please," Jake's voice trembled, clutching her arm with desperation. "What do we do?" She wanted to tell him they would be okay, that they should simply ignore the sounds, but her thoughts tangled in a knot of dread. Everything inside her rebelled against the idea of facing whatever was lurking on the other side. "Maybe it's a mistake," she whispered, but even she didn't believe it. The door rattled violently now, as if something on the other side wanted to burst through. "Don't!" Mia shouted, instinctively moving to block Jake's view of the door. The growling voice grew more urgent. "Mia, it's dark down here. I'm scared. Open the door." Her heart raced as panic spiraled. The voice sounded painfully familiar, echoing a memory she couldn't pinpoint. "Jake, stay back!" she yelled, forcing him toward the far side of the couch. Suddenly, there was silence. The air hung heavy and thick, as if trapped beneath water. Mia's eyes darted to the door, heart pounding, waiting for the next movement. Then, without warning, the door slammed open, revealing an abyss of darkness below. "Mia!" Jake screamed, but she couldn't look away. A figure loomed in the depths, just out of visibility, a shape that promised danger. "Mia!" the voice called again, but it was not Jake. In that moment, the room spun, the reality around her fracturing. Who was it, and what did it want? Mia felt a burning curiosity mixing with absolute terror. "Mia!" it repeated, pulling her closer to the edge of the unknown. The echoes lingered, ensnaring her thoughts. Just as everything reached a suffocating climax, Mia caught a glint of something in the darkness. A small flashlight, perhaps? Or was it the gleam of a knife? She took a bold step closer, her breath held tight. What had she unleashed by opening that door? The shadows swelled, swirling around the gaping door as it breathed in the air of the room, thick and musty. Mia's heart raced, thrumming in her ears like a drum of doom. She still couldn't see what was inside, but the air felt charged, crackling with an electric tension that hinted at unspeakable horrors lurking in the dark. "Don't move," Jake's voice cracked as he tugged at her sleeve, pulling her away. But something deep inside her urged her forward. The voice, Mia felt it wrap around her like a coiled serpent. It was familiar, and yet it was wrong. "Mia." The tone was inviting, sweetened with a false benevolence. "You can help me, just a little closer." What could it want? Panic swelled in her throat, choking off rational thought. She knew what was waiting in the darkness, yet those words tugged at past memories, like a familiar lullaby sung in a time of innocence. She took another step, her feet moving against her will, drawn to the abyss that had opened wide with a greeting more sinister than she had ever known. "Mia, please!" Jake cried, shouting now, desperation spilling over into his voice. "Don't listen to it!" The darkness churned, and it felt alive, rippling against her skin. All at once, the figure inside became clearer, a silhouette standing in the shadow, mimicking the familiar shape of someone she once loved. The pain twisted in her chest. "Mama," she breathed, the name slipping through her lips before she could catch it. But the familiarity twisted sickly into horror at the sight of sunken eyes and a grin too wide. "Mom? No, it's me." The voice was undeniably her mother's, but warped, distorted, as though it were being squeezed through a mile of brambles. "I just want to be with you. You've missed me, haven't you?" Mia froze. She felt torn between a longing she couldn't quell and the instinctive urge to flee. The basement stairs creaked again, echoing the pleading in the hallway, but it was louder now, as if encouraging her to trust it. "Mia!" Jake shrieked, pulling at her with all his might, but she felt as if roots had anchored her to the ground. "Help me! We have to get out of here!" Suddenly, the figure's face contorted into a mask of rage. "You don't want him. You want me." It lunged forward, a powerful shadow slicing through the dim light and sending fingernails scraping along the threshold. Mia stumbled backward, jerking her gaze away just as the figure neared. "Open the door, Mia! I need you!" Jake's hands were on her arms, shaking, and she felt the warmth of his panic. "Mia, we can't stay here. We have to go now." The strangled cries of her mother echoed deeper within the bowels of the house. The thought of leaving her brother filled her with dread, but another part of her was desperate to know, to understand what lay hidden in the depths of the darkness and betrayal. Yet, embracing that curiosity could lead them to doom. "Mia, we're running out of time!" Jake screamed, tears carving tracks down his cheeks. She felt the weight of the moment wrap around her like chains. The voice beckoned her again sweetly. "Come to me, sweet girl." Mia's heart broke. She took a shaky breath. "Jake, what do we do?" And then her mind flashed to the note she had shoved in her pocket. The words echoed in her thoughts, stirring an idea. A chance of hope, perhaps, or one last mistake. As she hesitated, a low growl emerged, shaking the very walls. The basement doors shuddered violently, and the darkness was clawing its way out. "Mia!" Jake cried as she stood at the precipice of a choice. Would she choose to uncover the truth hidden in the dark, or flee with the last remnants of sanity clinging desperately to their last hope in the light? The growl morphed into a roar, the kind that rattles bones and frays nerves. The air shimmered with dread as Mia's fingers clenched around the note. But before she could decide, the voice transformed again, throaty and hungry, drowning out her thoughts. "Open the door now, or you will lose everything." In the clash of whispers and roars, she felt reality fracture. The house seemed to pulse with agony. With a swift movement, adrenaline shot through her veins. She turned toward her brother, but the decision loomed larger than them both. "Mia!" Her heart ached, but terror lingered at the edge of her perception, a silent reminder of the horrors whispering in the dark. Would she truly lose everything by making a choice? Mia's resolve faltered. The darkness called to her. Would she plunge into it, risking everything for what could lie within, or turn away from the door and the truth it promised? In the stillness that followed, the silence between choices felt deafening. What would she choose? The roar echoed into the night, growing louder, amplifying the chaos swirling inside Mia's mind. Shadows spilled forth from the cracked door, wrapping around her like icy fingers, clutching desperately at her resolve. She could hear Jake's breathing, frantic and panicked, yet muffled under the cacophony of her own racing heart. "Please, let's just go!" Jake shouted, his voice slicing through the murk with urgency. Every word felt like a lifeline, yet the magnetic pull of that familiar twisted voice was too strong. There was a longing buried in her, an ache that drowned out reason. "Mia!" The roar crashed again, and it felt like the house itself screamed in agony, the very walls aligned against them. She could feel every vibration, every trembling breath of the darkness as it pushed against her, urging her to relinquish her fear. Suddenly, the figure in the shadow lunged forward with terrifying speed, the contours of its form morphing grotesquely under the feeble light. "Join me, Mia. You know you want to," it hissed, its voice slithering through the gaps in her defenses. The illusion of her mother twisted, skin stretched tight over jutting bones, a macabre interpretation of love. "Mia!" Jake's hands gripped her tighter, his knuckles white. "We need to leave, now!" She could only stare, caught in the web of familiarity and horror. Memories of laughter wrapped around her like a noose, tightening with every word from the figure beyond the door. Reaching out, it beckoned her forward, and a whisper curled around her heart. "I've missed you so much." With a shuddering breath, Mia's heart ached with the unbearable weight of nostalgia mingled with dread. These were her last fragile moments of choice. Could she stand against the monster disguised in the shadows, or would she give in to the relentless pull of the past? "Mia!" Jake screamed again, his voice bursting through the chaos. The frantic urgency in his eyes shattered her moment of paralysis. In a flash, she jerked backward, yanking her arm free from her brother's grasp. "Open the door," the voice hissed, enraged by her hesitation. The temperature dropped, cold tendrils wrapping around her neck, squeezing tighter and tighter. The note in her pocket felt heavy against her skin. What if it held the key? What if it was the answer? The thought sparked a flicker of courage, but was it enough to confront the tangible darkness? "Mia!" Jake was almost in tears now, fear painted across his face. "We can't let it get you! The roar turned into a cacophony of human-like screams, the very fabric of reality falling apart as the door shook violently. The floorboards creaked under invisible weight, the spinning shadows now clawing at her ankles, rising like smoke. "Help me, Mia! Your brother is lying!" The distortion of her mother's voice cut through the noise like glass shattering. Each word felt like a blade. Mia faltered, dread curling around her heart. What if Jake didn't know the whole truth? What if she left her one chance? The shadows screamed her name, drawing her forward. "Don't listen," Jake pleaded, but desperation clawed at her. She could almost see them now, spectral remains of her childhood dreams manifesting before her. "Just a little closer," they coaxed, the memories warping into whispers of a life she had lost, of all that was stolen from her. Jake had already taken a step back, the crumbling sanity of their reality urging him to escape. "Running away is the coward's way out," the specter hissed, anger boiling in its voice. Fists pounding against the invisible barrier of the door. "Mia, please!" Jake cried. But with every heartbeat, her resolve twisted into fragile threads of agony. Would she open that door, risking everything she held dear? The tension snapped like a fraying wire. The shadows crawled closer, each biting gust of wind filled with insidious laughter. "Make your choice," the words echoed around her, wrapping tighter than before. And then, Jake's scream pierced through the darkness as the walls seemed to shake with laughter, and an unseen weight, heavy with dread, crashed down around them. What more did the shadows want? Would Mia be strong enough to face what lay beyond that door? Or had she already lost everything? The air crackled and the house trembled. In that moment, a new scream echoed, but it wasn't Jake's. It was something worse. "Mia!" Mia spun around, her heart hammering in her chest, a frantic flood of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The voice of the figure slid through her thoughts like a razor, cutting deeper with each syllable. "Mia! Come back to me," it crooned, the familiar yet twisted melody echoing in her ears. "Shut up!" Jake shouted, his eyes burning with anger and fear. "We have to go now!" The desperation in his voice escalated, coaxing her back from the brink of the shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. But the air felt thick, almost alive, as if the very essence of her past was clawing to drag her back. The phantom had to be lying. She had to resist. Yet her mind swirled with remorse and longing, a battle waged between that horrible, grotesque figure and the brother who stood before her, broken but resolute. "We can't let it win." Jake thrust himself between her and the door, shoving against the growing shadows. The once inviting warmth of their childhood home now pulsated with a cold, malignant heartbeat, thumping like a war drum. The specter howled in rage, the voice morphing into a discordant symphony of her mother's peaceful lullabies now turned into monstrous shrieks. "I've waited too long. You are mine." "Mia!" Jake pushed her further away as the door rattled, its wood splintering at the edges. "Don't you see? It's manipulating you. It's not her." Mia felt a tear slip down her cheek as Jake's words crashed against the tidal wave of memories that threatened to pull her under. The whispers grew louder, beguiling, reeling her in. "You loved me. Remember, I only want to keep you safe." Then came the shattering roar that split the night, an unholy collision of love and loss that sent shockwaves through the air. The walls trembled as if in agony, crying out for deliverance. "Mia!" The abnormal voice morphed again, sharper and darker. "Leave him behind. He'll only get you killed." Panic surged through her veins, her mind racing. The shadows reached out, their icy grasp sinking deeper into her skin, whispering promises of family and warmth. Could she trust Jake? Was he really her only ally? Or was he the one who didn't understand just how beautiful this could be? "Mia, focus on me!" Jake's voice shouted through the noise, pulling her closer into the reality of her brother's unwavering spirit. "Remember who you are. Remember what it feels like to be free." She could feel her breath quickening, a desperate rhythm pounding in her ears. Images of laughter and warmth twisted with the darkness, intertwining like a chilling waltz. The figures behind the door were becoming clearer, the shadows appearing as ghosts of things once cherished and now perverted. "Mia!" He moved closer, desperation echoing from his eyes. "Don't let it take you. Trust me." In that moment of indecision, frustration ignited like wildfire in her soul. "No!" she screamed, the word erupting from her throat, breaking through the haze. As if struck by lightning, the oppressive shadows faltered, but it was only a momentary reprieve. The false figure began to dissolve, losing its form as it screeched in fury, tendrils of darkness crashing against her with renewed malice. "Mia!" Jake cried, stretching out his hand, urging her toward the staircase. "Run, now!" The shadows lunged once more, grasping, clawing their way toward her, as she turned, chest heaving, terror driving her legs through the chaos. She blinked, her future stretching before her like a darkened void. What awaited at the top? Would it be salvation, or something worse? Just as she reached the staircase, a horrific visage emerged from the darkness, a grotesque face shattered and twisted beyond recognition. "You'll never escape, Mia." Her scream mingled with the roar, intertwining as the twisted reality of her childhood spiraled ever downward. What would she find at the end of that path? More shadows, or the truth buried beneath the weight? The moment of choice had twisted once more, tightening around her like a noose. And then the door burst open behind her. Mia stumbled forward, the splintered door swinging wide to reveal the darkness beyond. The air was thicker here, oppressive, suffocating. She could hardly breathe, as if that horrible face was still lingering, clawing at her edges. With every heartbeat pulsing in her ears, she pushed herself up the creaking stairs, each step a torment, each creak of the wood echoing like a scream. Jake's voice was drowning in the chaos. "Mia, please, we have to hurry." He was still there, right behind her, but the weight of her past clawed at her heels. Mia's lungs burned as she reached the top. She glanced behind, a flicker of doubt in her heart. What if he's right? What if she was running away from something she really needed? The moment she hesitated, the shadows at her back surged, eager to wrap around her like a shroud. She forced herself to keep moving, racing down the dimly lit hallway. Pictures lined the walls, snapshots of a family that felt all too distant. They were smiling, unaware of the horrors that lurked in the corners of this house. The photographs seemed to shift in the low light, the faces blurring and darkening as despair settled in. "Mia!" Jake shouted again, his voice slicing through her thoughts. "Focus!" But the hallway began to warp, the walls breathing as if alive. She pressed her palms to them, feeling a pulse, a heartbeat. This was home. The memories rushed back, a violent storm of laughter, love, broken by tragedy. The shadowy figure whispered sweet lies. "Come back. They miss you." "Stop!" she yelled, shaking her head, fighting back the flood of longing. But it surged through her like ice water, rooting her to the spot. "Mia!" Jake's footsteps thundered closer. "You can't listen to it. It's feeding off your pain." She looked back down the stairs, the way she came now disappearing behind a thick mist of shadows, as if the house itself was swallowing her path. There was no going back. "Run to the end," Jake urged, pushing past her. "The door leads outside. It has to." Mia's breath faltered. Could they escape?
Could they really leave this place? The whispers ignited her fears, unearthing shadows she thought buried long ago. Maybe it's safe. The murmur slithered back, eerie and
Tempting. Please, Mia. Jake's voice cracked, full of desperation. In that instant, the echoes of laughter morphed into crying children. Their faces appeared, distorted and blending into the darkness, ghosts of what was once joyous. Mia clamped her hands over her ears, but the wails pierced through, relentless and shrill. Mia! A frenzy of emotions washed over her. Each scream churned in her gut like acid. She flicked her gaze toward Jake. He was still there, unwavering, despite the madness that had enveloped them. "Think of what we are fighting for," he shouted, a crescendo of passion cutting through the chaos. "We can't let it win." She clenched her eyes shut, overwhelmed. "But what if I'm wrong? What if—" "No!" His voice was firm, anchoring her. He took a step forward, like a lighthouse in the dark. "You're not wrong for wanting to live." In that moment, clarity sliced through the fog. The darkness may have whispered sweet promises, but it was calculated, sinister, seeking to bind her in chains of despair. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of strength. "Let's finish this," Mia declared, her voice stronger now. She surged forward, not just running towards the door, but towards the fight ahead. Dark tendrils lashed out, attempting to pull her back, but she pushed through, each step pounding against the floor like a war drum. Suddenly, the shadows twisted around her, forms rising and clawing. A multitude of faces emerged, familiar yet warped. "Do you really want to leave us?" they jeered, their voices twisted, blending into an almost seductive chorus. Her heart raced. She could feel the cold grasping at her ankles, trying to yank her back. "No!" she shouted, refusing to be bound. "This is not who I am." Then Jake grabbed her hand, anchoring her to the moment. With a final push, they burst out of the hallway. The door loomed ahead, but it was shuddering, as if something from the other side was trying to break through. They were almost there. But Mia hesitated for a split second, her eyes darting back to the shadows swirling behind them, the echoes of that past clawing for her. "Mia, now!" Jake roared, shaking her free from the trance. In that single heartbeat, she made her choice. Exhaustion surged through her, but she gripped his hand tighter. Together, they sprinted toward the door, but just as they reached the threshold, another horrific visage climbed through the darkness. "You can never leave." The sound of its shriek echoed off the walls, reverberating through her bones. What awaited them on the other side? Hope or another twist of despair? With a final breath, they slammed through the doorway. They tumbled through the doorway, slamming against the damp earth outside. The cool night air hit Mia like a bucket of ice water, shocking her back to clarity. She gasped, lungs heaving for breath, but the horrible shriek from behind reverberated in her mind, a haunting reminder of the terror that Jake pulled her away, glancing back at the door now swaying on creaky hinges, darkness dripping from its edges like black ink. "We did it!" he exclaimed, a mixture of relief and disbelief in his voice. But Mia felt a gnawing dread. They had made it outside, but the door still loomed, as if inviting them back, taunting them with what lay within. For a moment, the world outside seemed still, as if holding its breath. The night was too quiet, like the calm before a storm. Trees loomed around them, their twisted branches stretching out like arthritic fingers, scratching at the sky. "What now?" Jake asked, scanning the shadowy perimeter of the house. "Do we just run?" Mia's mind raced. No, it wasn't that simple. "What if it follows us?" The words slipped out, heavy with fear. "What if it comes for us? Then we fight it! We can't stop now!" His eyes were fierce, determined. But doubt lingered in her chest, tightening like a vice. "It feels like
It knows us. A rustle in the bushes startled them both. They turned, hearts pounding, as a figure stepped into the patchy moonlight. It was tall and thin, with a face obscured by a hood. Mia's breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" she called, her voice shaking. The figure remained silent, surveying them with an intensity that Mia's skin crawl. Then it stepped closer, revealing pale skin stretched tight over sharp bones. A ghostly smile creased its lips. "You shouldn't have run," it whispered, each syllable dripping with a dark allure. "The game has just begun. There's nowhere to hide." Mia could feel dread pooling at her feet. "What do you want?" "It wants you," the figure grinned, tilting its head like a curious bird. "It knows your secrets, and it will stop at nothing to collect its due." Jake stepped between them, fists clenched. "Get away from her!" But his bravado was thin, and they both felt the encroaching darkness swelling behind the figure, ready to swallow them whole. "Clever boy," it hissed, unfazed. "You think you can protect her? You don't understand. In its grasp, you both belong." Mia's teeth chattered. "No, we broke free. We left." The figure snorted a laugh that echoed eerily through the trees. "Did you?" It raised an arm, gesturing behind them. "Look again." Mia turned. The door had vanished. Where once it stood, the house now loomed darker, more ominous. And now, stripped of its entrance, it seemed to grow taller, stretching into a never-ending structure of despair. The shadows along the sides stirred, and the whispers began anew, more fervent, more eager. "No, this can't be happening!" Mia screamed. Jake grabbed her arm. "Focus, Mia. We can find another way." But panic surged in her veins. It was all inescapable. The house was alive, and they were still trapped within its grasp, no matter how far they had run. A biting wind swept past them, carrying with it
wails that slipped like icy fingers down her spine. "What do we do?" she gasped, looking into Jake's eyes, pleading for answers. "No matter what, we fight," he replied, resolve hardening in his voice. "We find a way to break its hold." But as they stood there, uncertainty thickening the air, the figure's smile widened into a maw of darkness. "Welcome back," it whispered, a chilling echo of despair. "Your story is not over yet." Mia's heart raced. Could they ever truly escape? Or would the shadows always find a way to reclaim what was theirs? Before they could strategize, a rumble rolled through the ground, shaking the very earth beneath them. What new horror awaited? Was there a path to freedom, or an even darker fate? A tremor surged beneath their feet, powerful enough to unsettle even the most stoic of hearts. Mia felt the earth pulse like a living thing beneath her, as if the ground itself was warning them to leave. She looked at Jake, panic reflected in their wide eyes, and she whispered, "What's happening?" Above them, the swirling shadows coalesced, thickening in the air like smoke gathering after a fire. The figure stood motionless, its grin stretching impossibly wider, echoing with a predatory delight. "The awakening has begun," it crooned, its voice sharp and melodic. "You thought escaping the door was victory. Oh, sweet children, there are far worse fates." Mia wanted to scream, to run, but every nerve in her body was paralyzed. The shadows lunged toward them, tendrils of darkness snaking out like the claws of some nightmare beast. They writhed and twisted, reaching out with a hungry grasp. Jake's grip tightened on Mia, and his voice cracked through the haze. "We need to move, now!" He yanked her away from the figure, pulling her past the trees that loomed with their skeletal branches, devoid of life and hope. They bolted into the underbrush, hearts pounding thunderously in their chests, but the oppressive darkness pulsed ominously around them, suffocating the trees, the very air. "Where do we go?" Mia gasped, desperation pouring from her. "Just keep running. We can't let it—" Jake's words were cut short as they stumbled over a hidden root, crashing onto the forest floor. The air knocked from their lungs. They gasped, the reality of their situation crashing down. A crack echoed like thunder. "Foolishness," the voice teased from the shadows. "Running will not grant you freedom. You cannot outrun the inevitable." Mia crawled to her feet, fear coursing through her veins. "What does it want from us?" she yelled, voice quivering. The laughter surged, an empty sound devoid of any warmth. "It wants your essence. You cannot comprehend what you have invited into your lives." The darkness swarmed, circling them. They saw glimpses of the twisted visions in its depths, figures of the lost, shadows of the souls devoured, trapped in a never-ending horror. They were taunting, whispering promises of despair, begging for release, but they had been utterly forgotten. Jake pulled Mia onward, the cold of his grip grounding her. "We have to find the road, the one we came from. We can—" Just as he spoke, the shadows recoiled, revealing an old path that snaked through the underbrush, cracked and overrun. It shimmered faintly, as if beckoning them forward. "Look, there's a way!" Mia exclaimed, hope igniting within her. The path flickered with faint light. The darkness pushed back, as if afraid to approach. They exchanged a glance, their only chance. They surged ahead, feet pounding against the ground. But as they bolted onto the path, a wail erupted from the shadows behind them, a chorus of lost souls echoing their pain and torment. "You have chosen, but can you escape?" Each step felt heavier, the air thickening with dread as they neared the end of the path. The darkness chased them, closer than ever. With a sudden turn, Jake skidded to a halt. "Mia, we need to split up. It might distract it." "Are you crazy?" she shouted, her heart dropping. "Trust me, we can't both go at once. Just promise you'll find me," he pleaded, determination flaring in his eyes. Mia stared at him, the terror clawing at her chest. "Jake, don't!" But he was already stepping back into the shadows, waving her ahead with a brave smile that felt like a broken promise. The darkness surged, wrapping around his figure, pulling him back with a haunting wail. "No!" Mia screamed, feeling her heart shatter. She hesitated, torn between the path and the treacherous pull of the night. "Run!" Jake's voice was fading, swallowed by the growing silence. She took off, desperation clawing at her as she fled, but dread hung heavily in the air. Had she truly chosen the right path? Mia stumbled onto the road, breathless and terrified, scanning the woods behind her with frantic eyes. No Jake, only the encroaching void. And then she noticed a figure standing at the edge of the trees, the figure from before. "Welcome back," it taunted, voice dripping with malice. Was it watching her? Had it followed her here? Fear gripped her heart anew. As the shadows surged closer, Mia realized she might be far from free, far from safe. What awaited her there, in the shadows where no light could linger? Mia stumbled backward, fear anchoring her feet to the road. The figure's grin widened, as if feeding off her terror. The laughter echoed around her, reverberating through the trees, a sinister reminder that safety was an illusion. "Why are you doing this?" she screamed, her voice rising in desperation. "What do you want?" "It's simple," the figure cooed, stepping closer, its form shifting like a mirage in the heat of the moment. "You've come too far to turn back. It craves your essence, and now it shall feed." The shadows around her darkened, swirling like angry clouds.
She could feel the cold seep into her bones, slowing her heartbeat until it felt like her chest would burst.
The path behind her faded into darkness, and the only option left was to fight or flee. Mia turned on her heel, sprinting down the road with the figure's haunting laughter trailing her like a twisted lullaby. The thought of Jake tormented her, and guilt clawed at her mind. Was he suffering? Was he trapped? She couldn't let fear swallow her whole. "Choose, sweet child," the voice echoed, stalking her directly. "Run straight into the embrace of despair, or linger and let the shadows consume you. The choice is yours." Her heart raced as she darted onto an even narrower alleyway. It felt creepy and confining, a space where hopelessness lurked in the corners. She fought through the clenching dread and ran toward a faint glow ahead. A lantern flickered like it was trying to fight back the night. As she closed in, the light quivered and revealed itself, a shabby cabin, weathered and worn, but alive. Hope pierced through her anxiety, and she pushed the door open with trembling hands. The interior was dim, lit only by the murky light of the lantern. Dust danced in the air, swirling like tiny souls trying to escape. Musty fabric draped over old furniture, and an unsettling chill made her skin crawl. "Mia?" a voice called from a darkened corner. Her heart leapt. Jake? But the voice wasn't his. It was a soft whisper, a lure to the unsuspecting. "It's safe here. Come, sit beside me." Mia squinted against the shadows, searching for a figure, any sign of life. "Where are you?" "Just beyond the shadows. Join us. We've been waiting for you." Laughter echoed, rising high, mixed with cries of joy and sorrow, enough to make her skin ripple. "No!" she yelled, backing away. "I won't let you take me." A chill shook her, and she heard the faint scuttling of something behind her. She spun around, fists clenched, breath coming in short bursts. The laughter grew louder, echoing all around the cabin, wrapping her in a suffocating embrace. Remnants of the past floated in the air, faces of the lost appearing in the shadows, their eyes hollow and pleading. "Help us," they murmured. "We're trapped, just like you." Mia stumbled back, panic rising like bile in her throat. Were they real? Were they once like her, lost in despair? She needed to leave. The thought gripped her tightly just above the pit of her stomach. Suddenly, darkness flared behind her. The figure that had chased her loomed in the doorway, backlit by the fading light outside. "You invite despair by hiding here, child." Its voice rolled like thunder. "The deeper you go, the less light remains." Mia's mind raced. She could not be ensnared. Not here. A flicker of desperation shot through her. "I won't let you take me." She darted to the opposite wall, searching for an exit. The laughter roared, a cacophony of despair. "You can't run from the past. It lives inside of you now." And then, like a shot, she saw it, a window, slightly ajar. She bolted toward it, heart hammering, splintering the illusion of safety the cabin had tried to create. The shadows lunged at her, icy fingers reaching for her flesh. "Let me go!" she cried, diving through the opening, tearing her arm on the jagged edges. Pain shot through her, but she crawled out, tumbling to the ground. Breathless and terrified, she looked back just in time to see the figure advancing from the cabin, its features warping like shadows in the dying light. "You cannot escape, not as long as it wants you." Mia took off into the woods, heart racing, but a chilling thought flickered in her mind. What if she was never truly alone? What if the darkness followed her, stalking her through every branch and shadow? As she ran, she felt the chill lingering, pressing at her heels. Was she truly free, or merely running into the arms of something infinitely worse? What would happen if she could never outrun the darkness that hungered for her? In the shadows of the forest, another pair of eyes watched, yearning for the chase to continue. Mia stumbled through the trees, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The ache in her arm where she had scraped against the window throbbed painfully, but she barely felt it. The chill gnawed at her heart like a ravenous beast, and the darkness loomed heavily behind her. "Just keep moving," she whispered to herself, pushing through the underbrush with urgency. Jake was out there somewhere, and she had to find him. They couldn't be apart, not after everything they had faced. She felt a pulse in her chest, a rhythm of fear mixed with determination. But the terror clung to her like a cloak, whispers from the trees echoing in her mind. "You cannot escape," they seemed to chant, each branch reaching toward her as if beckoning her back into their cold embrace. Then, with startling brightness, the moon broke through the clouds, illuminating a clearing just ahead. Mia's heart pounded in her chest as she broke into the open space, feeling the coolness of the night wash over her. "Jake!" she called, voice laced with desperation, the only sound in the unnerving stillness. At the far edge of the clearing, a figure stirred. Fear surged through Mia, but as the figure stepped forward, she recognized the familiar silhouette. "Mia!" Jake's voice resonated, shaky but relieved. "Thank God! I thought I'd lost you! Mia!" But before they could reach each other, a low growl echoed from the tree line. Shadows swirled and shifted around them, like tendrils reaching out from the trees, searching for their prey. Mia's resolve hardened. "We need to stand together," she said, gripping Jake's hand tightly. They were stronger together, and she felt emboldened by his presence. "Look!" Jake pointed toward a thicket of trees that appeared less dense, revealing a path that angled away from the ominous woods. "We have to head that way." But
the growl deepened, a rattle of ice-cold menace. "You cannot run forever." The voice slithered out, gloating over their fear. "Just keep moving," Mia urged, pulling Jake along as they sprinted toward the path. The shadows surged behind them, sharp claws grasping at the air, eager to drag them back. Each step drove the reality home. The specter still lingered, lurking in the darkness woven through the trees. "It knows every fear you have," the specter taunted, its voice chillingly close. "And it will take it all." As they ran, the trees began to close in again, but a distant light flickered through the woods ahead. "There!" Mia shouted, hope igniting. "It's a cabin!" They pressed on, the light glimmering brighter with every frantic step they took. But just as they reached the door, a shape lunged out, forming from the shadows, a grotesque figure, distorted and gnashing its teeth. "No!" Mia screamed, pushing Jake behind her, but the shadow loomed larger, an overwhelming force. It growled, "You can't escape your past." With an outstretched hand, it reached for them, grasping desperately. But as it did, the light from the cabin burst forth, illuminating everything around them. "Stay away!" Jake shouted, stepping forward. Mia felt his grip tighten. "Together, Jake!" They threw their combined strength into the cabin's door, forcing it open. Light flooded the dark, and for just a moment the figure hesitated. It recoiled as the warmth of the cabin's golden glow enveloped them. "Come on," Mia urged. They dashed inside, hearts pounding, slamming the door shut behind them. The space felt alive with energy, unlike anything outside. The walls were lined with alive colors, a warmth that thrummed beneath her fingertips. The oppressive darkness couldn't touch them here. Mia turned to face Jake, breathing in relief, but also fear. "What now?" Before he could respond, a loud thud echoed against the door, rattling on its hinges. "You can't hide in here," the voice of the figure roared, fury lacing its tone. "No, we won't let it take us," Jake said firmly. Mia felt small but unwavering. We have to face it. Around them, the cabin seemed to hum with power, as though the very structure knew their intent. "What if," she whispered, her heart racing, "what if we embrace it, the darkness? What if we make our fear ours?" "But how?" Jake's face was pale but determined. "We have to confront it together. Whatever it wants from us, we have to take back our truth." The pounding at the door intensified, and dread coiled tighter around them. Together? Jake searched her eyes. Always. They stood back to back, bracing themselves for the inevitable. With a roar, the door burst open, and the figure surged inside, a twisted version of everything they had lost, a mockery of love and family, its ghastly smile splitting its face. "Mia," it cooed, rage laced within loving whispers. "Come to me." "No!" they shouted in unison, a ringing defiance piercing through the dark. "Accept what you are," it demanded.
Stretching its clawed hands, Mia closed her eyes, grounding herself. "I'm not afraid." Jake's voice was steady beside her. "We won't give you our essence." As they stood firm, a brilliant light began to swell within them, merging in a glistening halo that broke through the shadows. The figure wailed in agony, the light pushing it back, forcing it against the walls, shrinking with each heartbeat. "Your past will not claim us," they yelled, the power shimmering brighter, igniting the entire cabin. With one last cry of resentment, the figure imploded in a burst of dark mist, scattering like ash into nothingness. Silence filled the room, a profound peace washing over them. Jake turned to Mia, breathless. Did we do it?" Mia searched the corners of the cabin, heart racing, but fear no longer gripped her. "I think we did," she whispered, overwhelmed with relief. They stepped outside into the cool night air, the reality stretching ahead like a promise. The trees no longer loomed threateningly, but cast soft shadows, their branches swaying gently as if waving goodbye. "I think we're free," Mia breathed, looking back at the cabin, a symbol of what they had faced, twisted memories left behind. "Together," Jake affirmed, squeezing her hand, anchoring her to a future they would build anew. "Together," Mia echoed. They turned back to the road ahead, hearts filled with hope, ready to forge their path into the dawn. And for the first time, darkness began to recede, light dawning, free from fear, free from shadows. They stepped forward, with new strength, ready to embrace whatever awaited them. You need to subscribe now to follow captivating stories like this one. Make sure to smash that like button. It's the moment to show your support. I'd love for you to flood the comments section with your theories about what could happen next. And don't wait even 1 second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this all wraps up. Your engagement makes a huge difference.